Okay, we've got 4 o'clock. I'm a believer in starting on time, so let's get started. Salesforce for nonprofits, the basics. So on behalf of the Connecticut Nonprofit Salesforce Users Group, let me welcome you to the first online meetup of the Users Group. We are a group of Connecticut Salesforce professionals. We're coming together to advance digital transformation in our organizations. We are networking together, learn together, implement together, integrate together, and expand the use of the Salesforce ecosystem in and across our organization. So welcome everybody, thank you for being here. iMission kicked off this user group about a year ago. And by the way, my name is Rob Layton, if I neglected to say that, and I am the executive director of iMission. We kicked off this users group about a year ago. We now are about 50 members strong. We are on LinkedIn. It started as a virtual meeting, a virtual group. We, in fact, were hoping that April 23rd would be the first time that we could actually get together and have a meetup and exchange some views, tell some more stories, help people about the basics. So just in the interest of the meetup, I did bring a bottle of beer and I did bring a bottle of wine. So it's in spirit, we are there. But the least of all our problems today is I've gained 10 pounds in the last month, so I am staying away and drinking wine. But let's get into some of the interesting stuff here. Just a shout out for upcoming meetups. In May, we have Salesforce and fundraising. And in June, we have program and grants management with Salesforce. At this point, we've converted both those. Again, those were supposed to be live and in-person meetups at different places in the state of Connecticut. For now, those will be webinars as well. And we will provide links to everybody on how to access those. In the fall, come September, we're going to have a session on accounting integration, and in October on advocacy, grassroots advocacy using the Salesforce and associated apps. We need speakers for all of those, so if you have an interest and knowledge and the ability to speak on any of those, or know somebody who does, just get into the users group on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'd like to participate. The agenda for today, real basic, what is Salesforce? It's so much more. If some folks are coming here thinking that it's a donor management system, it is, absolutely, but it is so much more. It's part of the digital transformation of what's going on around us. And for those of us who are trying to stay connected in this pandemic era, we really understand that this digital transformation is driving an incredible change, and it's led us doing things we never could do before in past generations. It's making a very bad situation somewhat easier, but it is part of an ongoing process of how we do better, how we do good better in our organizations using digital tools. And then we're going to give you some quick tips on how to get started on your journey with Salesforce, and we'll open it up to questions and hopefully discussions. We have 14 people on the webinar now. That's good for a meetup, so I'm good. I'm happy to hear that. So maybe we can just open this up to conversation. All right, what is Salesforce? Let's start with the basics. It is a global leader as a constituent relationship management platform. The term is often CRM, constituent client customer relations management platform. And I'm going to emphasize platform here. There are a lot of donor management packages, Blackbaud, Razor's Edge, ETAP, Donor Perfect, Bloomerang, Little Green Light, lots and lots and lots of them that are also CRMs, but they're focused really specifically on donors. The power of Salesforce is that it can address the CRM needs, the relationship building needs of an entire organization. And that's really more exciting than you can imagine. It's about how do you break down silos of an organization? How do you organize around clients and customers and donors, volunteers, activists, and so forth. Really important. But Salesforce has become more than the company, and that's really important. We are, and I consider myself part of it, a large and growing community of users that are users, whether in the nonprofit sector, health, education, manufacturing, banking, insurance, in almost every sector of our economy, there are users of Salesforce. There are also app developers. Again, Salesforce is an open source, cloud-based environment. So app developer, open source, think about an Apple store, a Google store, the Samsung store. There are thousands of people developing applications that extend the use of a particular platform, in this case, Salesforce. So that's a big, big community. There are also integrators, all those apps or the apps that you may be using, like Constant Contact or MailChimp, Eventbrite, SurveyMonkey, lots of different apps that are also open source and are also cloud-based. You have integrators that basically all they do in this world is get those systems, those applications talking to each other. And then you have consultants like iMission, consultants that are many, many, many different consultants, both here and abroad. So it is a large and growing community. With the Connecticut Users Group, we are trying to build that community here. What's so important is that the tips and techniques of how to use this platform well, sometimes the only way you can really learn them well is to have conversations with your peers, and we're trying to promote that. So the first thing to do, I emphasize the word platform, and let's think about the ecosystem architecture of Salesforce. So on the bottom of that pyramid sits the Salesforce platform. It's the basic functionality of Salesforce. Again, it's open source, cloud-based platform. That means a lot of people data can flow in and out of that platform really easily. On top of that sits applications. Now, Salesforce has developed a lot of applications themselves. They call them clouds, like the Marketing Cloud and the Sales Cloud and the Health Cloud and the Nonprofit Cloud, NPSP, Nonprofit Success Pack, which we're going to talk about today. And again, you have a lot of third parties developing different sorts of applications. You have events applications if you want to do, sophisticated type of events, like conferences. You have peer-to-peer fundraising platforms. Whatever you want to do, practically, there's an application out there. If it's not done by Salesforce, it's done by somebody else. And then what's really important about Salesforce, and it's really kind of critical, if anybody's ever been in a piece of software and they wanted to do something special with that, often the case is that you have to, one of two things, you'd have to pay a developer lots of money to do what you want to do. And in some cases it worked, in some cases it didn't, and it's certainly specific to you. And when the next upgrade came, that piece of upgrade customization didn't work. The other side is that you would wait for the solution provider, whatever application you were using, to actually develop. They would call it, oh, it's on our roadmap. You'll have it in 6 months. No, it's not ready. You have it in a year. No, we don't have it. You have it in 18 months. And it takes time and it's frustrating. What Salesforce offers, and it's really very exciting, is the ability to do no-code customization. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody can just drop in and do that, the customization. It takes some expertise, but it's relatively easy to find somebody to do that kind of work for you. And increasingly, if you're a mid to large size organization, or you're a real do-it-yourself kind of person, you certainly can figure that out yourself. Okay, so the application that we really want to focus on today is the Nonprofit Success Package. So Salesforce for Nonprofits, also known as the Nonprofit Success Package, as kind of the starter platform for what gets you going. And there's a couple ways to think about, there's a couple ways to think about the data structure. The first is we're talking about relationships with people. So the personnel, the information about people is important. And so in the Salesforce language, we call those contacts, and a person is a person is a person is a person. For those of you in the Salesforce world, if you've ever gotten a check from Mr. and Mrs. John Adams or Jane Adams and put that in as a contact, no, that's not a contact. As I'll talk in a minute, that's a household. A contact is always one person, and to that person, we can assign their basic contact information, their address, their interests, their demographics. If we integrate with some tools, we know what their propensity to give is, what their capability of giving big dollars are, how old they are. There's a joke that says, how do you get a millennial to give? And the answer to the joke is you got to wait till they're 40 or 45. Because that generation after generation, that's when people give. But beyond the person, again, this is a relationship management tool. And so we have to think about the relationships of people to people. And in the Salesforce world, there's two ways to think about relationships. One is my relationship, husband and wife, and reciprocal relationship, son and daughter, and so forth. And those individuals can roll up into two types of accounts. That's what we call the framework upon which relationships get coupled. One is the household, right? So think about it this way. John and Jane Adams live in the same household. They each have their own contact record. They roll up to a household. What's really good about that, if you've ever walked to your mailbox and gotten 7 or 8 different fundraising letters from the same organization, that's because they were mailing to the contact record as opposed to one email to the household and addressed to the household. What's also true is because we understand relationships in that household, we also may have the 22-year-old son who's trying to become a musician living at home, but still has a passion for the organization, may not have a lot of money, but still has a passion for the organization and may want to volunteer. So we can begin to track what's happening at the household level about what's interesting. And then they also may have their pediatrician daughter, Jennifer, who also has a passion for the organization, but does not live at home, but clearly is in a position where she could be a donor as well. And we can speak to them in an organized way that reflects their relationships and their living situations. That's the household. That's the individual. That's the individuals. The other piece we want to think about is their affiliations to organizations. And so we have households, but perhaps we want to be tracking a relationship in let's take one. Let's take your local community foundation, and you have the grants manager at that community foundation, and you want to be tracking that individual to that organization. That is an affiliation. But what's also true is that individual also may have a passion for your nonprofit and actually gives you money. And then what we have as we move up from person to relationship to donors, what we have the ability is to start rolling up that history in different ways. So we can track donation history, we could track pledges, we could track hard and soft credits. What I mean there, so you have a board member, right? They go out and get somebody to give you $10,000. The person who gave gets the hard credit, but the board member you want to recognize and track over time. Maybe you have a give-get policy, and that they just met their give-get standard as a board member for that year. That's a soft credit. They're not actually giving the money, but they're getting some sort of credit for it. And then we can also group that data, and the campaign functionality of Salesforce is incredibly powerful. But campaign data would be your annual appeal, in which you have a year-end, your annual fund, in which you have a year-end appeal. So that year-end appeal can be part of that annual campaign, and you can start managing that. It's also a great tool for capital campaigns, right? And then there's this cool application that comes with the Nonprofit Starter Pack. It's not an application, it is a separate application, but it lets you manage volunteers. And what's so cool about it is you can set it up that, let's say you have an event coming up and you have a schedule of when people have to staff tables or do various things. You can get that information out into the world where people can sign up themselves. Huge savings in a lot of ways for volunteer management and for event management in some cases. That's the basics of Nonprofit Success Pack, kind of the foundation. But it's really interesting that a lot of the organizations we work with, in fact, don't start using Salesforce for resource development, either fundraising or grants management, what have you. The development team, in fact, has their package. It may be any number of them, but they have what they've been using and it's working fine for them. They don't want to make a move. But the program team, the program group, has a pressing need, maybe because of a grant or a contract with the state government. They have a pressing need to track a program and to track the people moving through those programs. So there's a number of organizations we work with that actually started with the program management and using Salesforce to manage the relationships with clients and advocates and activists, and only later do they say, oh, we can use the same platform, the same language, the same set of applications to manage our entire organizations. Wouldn't that be great instead of having 3, 4, 5, 6 different type of platforms? And that is the power of open source cloud-based technology. Now, in fairness, Salesforce is not the only one, but the only one I think that comes close and is coming up fast is Microsoft. And those are the big time ecosystems that people are going to bother to spend time developing applications for. So there's a ton you can do across your organization. And when I talk about breaking down silos, that's why I can break down silos, because you don't have an application for development, resource development, and then 1 or 2 or 3 applications for programs and on and on and on. All the data is coming into one place. Now, when I say all the data is coming into one place, what a lot of people get scared. If all the data is coming in one place, what are we going to think about security, confidentiality? What happens if we have healthcare issues, HIPAA issues, variety of challenges related to security in this day and age. Again, the 2 sides of the digital world is the ability to connect and learn about people, but people also find that we all find some of that creepy, and we need to think about how to protect privacy. Salesforce has a mind-blowing number of access configurations. I mean, it's just incredible. You know, recognizing insurance companies, healthcare companies, banks are using Salesforce. I mean, organizations that have high need for confidentiality. And so there's a couple things to think about. One is, if you know big organizations across the world are using Salesforce, you know they've got security overall figured out. What's also true is that you can restrict access at a very detailed level to only certain people, certain types of roles, certain specific people. It is an incredible ability to make sure people only see what they should see. And the other side of making sure people see what they should see is making sure that when I open a screen, I don't have a ton of information that I will never use. I will never have a ton of navigation or click points that I don't care about. It's not part of my work. It's not part of my day. In the same sense, we can restrict people from seeing certain data for confidentiality reasons. We can also do it for productivity reasons. And Salesforce does that really, really well. Report writing, getting data in and out is getting, and making sense of it, and having data analytics and understanding and wisdom. And as we move forward, artificial intelligence in terms of how we understand the data, little further down road for most of us, right? But the report writing capabilities and the dashboarding, and you have some examples here, that you can see in Salesforce are really remarkable. The Nonprofit Success Pack comes with lots and lots and lots of standard reports. Those standard reports are relatively easy to modify. There's also developing some capability in terms of report writing. You can extract data in lots of different ways and either visualize it within Salesforce, or for more sophisticated visualization, you can go to an outside app. And what's really cool, by the way, and I've seen organizations save a ton of time with just having these dashboards in terms of preparing for board meetings, because it's the same set of data month to month. Boards like that, they can track it, and all you do is push a button and your board data, at least on the program side or the fundraising side or the adequacy side, can come right up. But what's so cool about this, when you bring up the dashboard, you can actually click. I'm just going to show you here. You can click a view report and dig down into the detail. So you're in a board meeting, you have the screen up, a board member asks, well, what happened here? So instead of making sure you know every little piece of detail before you walk into the meeting, you just click, bring up the report, and you can have a conversation. Really very powerful tool to let us work smarter. And then finally, in terms of looking at Salesforce, kind of the big basics of Salesforce, we're going to get into the basics in a minute, but the big basics of Salesforce is the app exchange that we're talking about. You have so many people developing applications that extend the need. You don't have to wait for when the application may be developed by a particular vendor. There's so many out there. I just went in real quick into the app exchange, typed in the nonprofit, the industrial collection, the industry collection on the nonprofit. You'd see nonprofits, they have health, they have education, they have all sorts of industry collections. And here, this is not all, there are lots of them, but you have Click and Pledge, which is I'm sorry, I'm a little challenge here. You have Click and Pledge, or Classy, which is a peer-to-peer fundraising and online fundraising tool. You have Wealth Engine and iWave, which are donor search as well, which are wealth management, propensity to give, capacity to give stuff, and MailChimp and Constant Contact, and the apps and the integrations of how those things are talk to each other, you can find in the app exchange. So it opens up a world. You don't have to wait. You can access what you need. Take some time and understanding to figure out what it is that you really want in finding the apps that work, or do you need to customize an app for yourself? But there's huge opportunity. Well, all right. I have a funny mouse today. Okay. I apologize, folks. So in summary, the big basics of Salesforce, it's a digital foundation for the transformation of organizations of how and where work is done. Certainly the where question is a big question we're going through today, but how? There's never been a case in human history where when we said you got to work smarter, not harder, and that was and that wasn't driven by some sort of technology. Whether it's the wheel or whether it's Salesforce, it's technology that makes a difference. We can't just keep beating on people and say they have to work smarter when really what they're doing is just working harder. It's technology that makes things easier. So to sum up this part of the presentation, tip one, look beyond function and price. This is the old way we looked at software. We would line up price, we line up the functionality and say, yeah, I like this one as opposed to that one. Well, the truth is, in terms of function and price, you can find a lot of different competitors that match each of those, and you can have a conversation about which you might like better, and which sales folks might do a better job, or customer service folks might do a better job. But really, you're making a strategic decision now when you're selecting software. or you're selecting platforms, when you're making digital decisions. Every digital decision, large investment, is a strategic decision. So look beyond function and price, look to ecosystem. Salesforce is an ecosystem, Microsoft is an ecosystem, and the strategic use of digital. How do you want to do good better? And how do you use technology to do that? Okay. Okay. So we're going to do a get ready, get set here. There we go. Get rid of the mouse, just use the cursor. Okay, good, I got that. Okay, so when you do get ready, get set, let's get ready to start with Salesforce. How do you do that? One, access your 10 free licenses. Hey, if you don't have your 10 free licenses now, you can get off the phone today, you can get off the webinar today. You can go online and to salesforce.org, not .com, salesforce.org, and find out how you can apply. In a couple hours, you can have your application in, presuming that their Salesforce isn't backlogged because of the situations we are all in today. You'll typically see the license granted if you're a 501c3 in 7 to 10 days. So you have 10 free licenses. Now, the 11th license, if you needed it, it's going to cost you some money, but at a dramatic discount to what a for-profit company would charge. And we'll talk about budgeting in a minute. So Salesforce is not like going to the car dealership, buying a car, putting the key in the ignition, and driving away. And it's the step up, it's not like going to IKEA and buying a set of furniture and trying to figure out, spending most of a weekend trying to figure out how that all goes together on DUI. You really do want to take some time to discover the learning tools and the supports that will let you be successful. The learning tools, Salesforce has an immense number of learning tools you can use. They have the Trailblazer, Trailhead, where they have modules to learn specific pieces of the application, modules they have organized into courses and learning paths. So if you wanted to do fundraising on Salesforce, there's a whole learning path to help you do that. There's the Power of Us community, which is like the users group here in Connecticut, but it's an online users group that people are very excited and very eager to provide support if you have a specific question. And then you have users group like the Connecticut nonprofit Salesforce users group, and there are users group all across the country. And it need not be the users group, need not be the nonprofit users group. There are also general Salesforce users group that you can access. The other thing you want to do when you're just thinking about getting started, getting ready to really use the system, is to learn the language and the data structure. Like everything, actually my daughter, she works at Tesla, and Elon Musk allows one acronym in the entire company, and the one acronym is ASS, A-S-S, and that is that acronyms seriously suck because it prevents people from actually communicating. But the truth is that everything has a language, and Salesforce also has a data structure. Once you learn the language and once you learn the data structure, what seemed mysterious at first becomes very clear. So you need to spend some time to do that. Salesforce has also something called sandboxes. That is, before you start putting data in your what you will use live, you can start playing in the sandbox, just like we did when kids. We play in the sandbox and start using the sandbox to learn the different features and to start putting in some data that you can work with and see how it all comes together. And finally, in terms of getting ready, I also encourage everybody to find a way to get a quick answer to an issue. A quick answer, Salesforce does have premium support where you can pay for getting support. Salesforce also has, when you're first starting out, they do have a pro bono program where you can get, I forget what the number is, 10 to 20 hours of support from a Salesforce person because they are committed to having their staff donate their time to helping you bring up the nonprofit success pack. People have used both those tools with great success. Salesforce will also, this is a bit of a pitch, but Salesforce will also tell you that success with really using the power of Salesforce will come from establishing a relationship with a consultant, because that will allow you to navigate, have somebody help you navigate, get stuff done, and get quick answers so everybody can move forward. Budgeting the process. Again, 10 free, the first 10 users licenses are free, but let's face it, if that's the reason you're going to Salesforce, don't do it. Don't do it, because tech is rarely ever free. Actually, I've never seen when it is truly free. It always, regardless of what you have to spend to get it, the real power of tech is not the tech itself, but how we use the technology, how people use the technology. And it's the time it takes to learn, the resources you have to invest in training and support, the workflow improvements and development that you want to think about to really do work better than you have in the past, to do it smarter than you've done in the past, takes time, money, resources. So it's really rarely free, never free. So you want to budget in two ways. If you have a project in front of you, like you want to migrate your fundraising system over, if you want to migrate that over, it's an investment, right? It's a project with a beginning and an end. That's going to take some amount of money, and some amount of resources, staff resources as well. The second part of it is that if we really want to be successful with Salesforce or any other technology tool that we have, it's about an ongoing commitment to the digital transformation of our organizations, so we really can do good better. Just kind of the way to think about digital today, it's like constructing, it's like constructing a building, right? The building the building has one set of costs. It's the investment, it's the project. It has a beginning and end. But we all know that in our financial budgets, we have to allocate money to maintain that building and upgrade that building and add to that building and enhance that building. You have to do the same thing here. And you want to think about, if you're budgeting just for the investment of the project without the ongoing commitment to the operational support, the maintenance, the upgrades, you're just not going to get as much progress, success, productivity, enhancement to mission. Okay, so we got ready. Now it's time to get set. How do you get set? The first thing I want to encourage everybody to think about is not to organize around workflow, not organize around data migration. Lots of organizations say, hey, we've got all this data in this old system. We're not going to be able to use the new system until we get all that data migrated over. Here's the challenge. They do that. They take the old data, they put it in the new system. They spend a lot of time doing that, but they haven't taken the time to train people, to orient people, to make people part of the process of how you use that technology, right? Of how you use that data. And again, technology itself is not that interesting for most of us. We are not really technology companies. We use technology to do what we do better. What we want to do, what you want to start in terms of getting set and being successful is organize around workflows. That may be how you do volunteer recruitment and management. That may be how you do fundraising. That may be how you do grants management. That may be how you organize tracking people through programs. And again, people start with Salesforce in many, many different ways, not just through the fundraising, kind of the fundraising vision. Once you have the workflow identified or workflows that you want to start with, depending upon the resources you have at hand, you want to engage the people who touch the workflow. You want to bring them in as part of the process. That's getting set. And what you want to do with them is identify the pain points and the opportunities in the existing process, and think about how can we use this new piece of technology to do things better, differently, and in ways that make life easier. So important, identify pain points and opportunity with a clean sheet mapping approach, really, really important. Because here's the truth, is if you do this up front, once you go live, you'll actually be using the system and people will feel good about the system. Next step is select the necessary data to work effectively. You don't need to migrate all the data you have in the old system. And people spend hours, days, weeks, months, and I've seen as many as 18 months to clean up all the data. And to work effectively, they only needed about 20% of the data. So be mindful of what data you really need for the people who touch that workflow. What data do they need to be successful? You want to take a snapshot of that data. You can be cleaning up whatever data that is important. You can be spending some time cleaning it up because you do want clean data going into the system. But take 10 or 20% of that data that's clean. You don't have to get it all clean. Get it into your sandbox and start building out the workflows and training people in those workflows. That's really going to optimize your success. And once the data is up there, once the data is in the sandbox, take people for the test runs, troubleshoot the process, try to use it. And again, this takes time, right? But unless you take the time up front, like so many things in tech, so many organizations that we have run across, they have Cadillac pieces of software, they have Cadillac technology, and they use it like it's a moped. It's really tragic. Anyway, so the other thing I talked about is data structure. This is a simplified understanding of it. We talked about contacts. Contacts as individuals that roll up to households. We have contacts that also are in households and are affiliated with an organization. We have opportunities. Think about these are the things that we want people to do or the things that they have done. So an opportunity might be a donation. A donation may be something we want one of these contacts to give. That's an opportunity before they give. And after they give, and this is a little tricky, this is a little funky in terms of the language, we still call that an opportunity that's been closed. And again, so the basic concepts that you really want to know, and these are called objects, we'll talk about what that is in a minute. Contacts, accounts, the type of accounts, households and organizations, what affiliations, you don't see relationships here, but that's husband, wife, son, daughter, that type of thing. Opportunities, and the other big, if you're approaching this from a resource development point of view, the other big element to think about are campaigns, a really powerful object within Salesforce. Obviously, things can get complicated really quickly, so just take it step by step. This is all about peeling the onion and building your process, initiating your process, but building it over time. Now, again, it's about learning the language because people in the Salesforce world use language, use certain words, and if you know it, it's just gonna be easier for you. One is instance. Think about, so you will be getting a Salesforce instance. You don't have a piece of software that you're putting on a server. You will have an instance of Salesforce. An easy way to think about it is it's your residence within the Salesforce building. You have an apartment within the building. There's lots of other people around you, but you have privacy. It's yours. Nobody gets in without a key. And that's your instance, right? You can add rooms, you can add features, you can do all sorts of things within your residence, but it's yours. But it sits within the Salesforce building. Records. Records are what you are seeking to track, like people and accounts, households and organizations, campaigns, annual appeals, capital campaigns, and so forth. That's another way. Records are another way to think about rows in a spreadsheet. Records are the first column that you have, and all the rows in there are your records, right? Fields are the information you are tracking around those records. Think of those as your columns in a spreadsheet, right? So in the first column, we might have people. In subsequent columns, we might have phone number, address, gender, donations given last year, donations given this year, so forth. Objects, think of it as the whole spreadsheet. That's the set of rows and columns, or records and associated fields. And then apps, applications, are a collection of objects that together allow you to do your work effectively. Some basic understanding of the language. Understand the language, you'll also have a better understanding of the data structure. A few final thoughts on adoption, and then we can kind of open this up for questions. The first is that Salesforce is, at first blush, unless you've taken time to introduce people to it, can be a scary thing. And first impressions are important, are critical for success. So you want to provide the context of which somebody will be starting in Salesforce. I think it's always useful to help people to understand that we're not just buying another piece of software or another tool, but that there's a broader vision about how we use digital and the power of digital to transform the world around us. We're seeing that in action every day, last 6-8 weeks. Again, I can't stress it enough, you want to be addressing pain points of team members in the work they do daily. I guarantee you that you will have a number of people when you first introduce this to that will be defensive in the way they do work, because that's the way they've been doing it for years. And it's important to be sensitive to that. But between vision and kind of deep listening about what their real challenges are, I think you can make some huge progress. And you need to leave time for people to transition, and that's training, and that's time to learn, and that's time to test. And the last point I'd make is that you want to help team members break from the past. And what does that mean? So in a lot of cases, we've seen organizations employ exciting new ways of doing things. And everybody says, this is really great. But there are people in the process that still want to do, they haven't been given the right, the privilege, the opportunity not to do the work they used to do, or being told that they shouldn't do it. And so they will continue to do the old work under the old process, even though it has no merit. Really surprising, but that is in fact what happens. So you need to be able to understand what work people are doing today and what work they don't need to do tomorrow. And you need to tell them that, we don't really need to do that if we make this transition. So questions, folks? Let me see here. Jack, Norick, how are you? Does Salesforce start with vanilla? I'm going to read the question. Does Salesforce start with a vanilla configuration that could work for smaller nonprofits that are not using any digital tools at all? Yeah, it does seem overwhelming. I got you. But yes, there's a way to start simply. And that's honest as I can be, but you're still going to have to make some sort of commitment of time. So again, there are, and so I've heard a lot of numbers about how many nonprofits are actually using Salesforce. I think it's something of over 40,000 nonprofits have actually received a license. Some percentage of that, I think a very large percentage of that. I've heard some numbers as 70% are actually using the platform effectively. But there's some people that are not. But yes, there is the nonprofit success pack is a vanilla configuration, if you're talking about on the fundraising side. Katie O'Leary from Livewell up in Southington is asking, I'd like to hear more about the integration of Salesforce and MailChimp. There's a number of different ways to do that. And it really depends upon how sophisticated you want to get in the way information flows from MailChimp into Salesforce and Salesforce into MailChimp. A couple things. Salesforce typically is always the database of record. So the application on the outside will not overwrite what's in Salesforce. Depending upon, let's say you are capturing lots of different interests. For instance, you're running a bunch of Zoom meetings, right? And you've integrated Zoom with Salesforce, so you know all the different webinars that somebody has joined, maybe even the meetings that they've joined. Plus, you know that they've been to your gala, plus you know they have a donation. So you want to push a segment into MailChimp to communicate with them appropriately. That's not the simple solution, which is MailChimp for Salesforce, but a different one called Kazumi, and there's some other applications as well that work, that could work for that. I should also emphasize that Salesforce, I think it was 2018, maybe 19, added the ability to do some level of broadcast email. If you want to send out 10,000 emails to all your clients or all your constituents, you could not do that directly from Salesforce Basic. They do have tools to do that, things like Pardot, which is a marketing automation tool they have. That's getting a little more complicated. But if you're just looking to email out 100, 200, 300 names in the course of a day. I think it's up to 5,000 you can do in a day, 200 in any one email. You can create an easier way to do that instead of trying to do the integration is to have just send it out as a campaign member email. Again, I mentioned that campaigns are really powerful. Take some time to think about it. Meredith Benson is asking, explain a bit more about how other parts of the business can use this to break down silos. Oh, gosh, I love that question. Let me give you an example of an organization we work with. They work with folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And they started with Salesforce. Oh, I'm going to give an even easier one. The Diaper Bank of Connecticut. There are diaper banks all over the United States, right? The first one was here. The first one in the network came out of New Haven, Connecticut. There were other diaper banks. So let me kind of walk you through what happened there. So they were on Network for Good. And they're having a lot of troubles, particularly in terms of their ability to kind of manage donors and understand what's going on and integrate with events and all that. So they went into Salesforce to manage, they integrated with MailChimp. They had Click and Pledge, which is a peer-to-peer and online donation platform. And they started using it for major donors. They started using it integrated way for resource development. But what was going on, they also had a lot of paper processing that was going on. So the model there is they have distribution partners, social service organizations all over the state that had to do a couple of things. They had to apply, so there was an application to apply. That we moved into an online form that fed into Salesforce directly. Each one of the people receiving the diapers in each of those social service agencies also had to complete an application. That was 4,000 to 5,000 applications per year, got automated and got moved into the organization, got moved directly into Salesforce. And that each social service agency actually gave a monthly order on the diapers that they needed for their clients, which was also a paper process. And that was put onto an online form. And why that was not only from a cost efficiency, an effectiveness point of view, that huge amount of time we saved in terms of transferring data, but the Diaper Bank of Connecticut also had a fairly significant new contract with the state of Connecticut, where they really had to start being very religious about capturing all that information and compiling it in a way that they can present to the state. So we automated the process, and lots of organizations are doing these kind of things. We automated the process. Then the question, and this is about breaking down silos and making it easier, there was a lot of donor information and some financial information that needed to interface with QuickBooks, a pretty basic system. This is really about on the inventory side of things. And they were able to run some really basic reports out of Salesforce. We didn't bother with sophisticated integration. They ran basic reports for month-end reconciliation, as opposed to having what was once done is putting all their donors into the both the fundraising system and into the accounting system. So huge savings there. So the accounting department was happy. The warehouse is happier because they're seeing the demand data in real time, and our relationships with our agencies, the Diaper Bank, it's not ours, it's the Diaper Bank's. The relationship with their agencies is much more streamlined and effective. I hope that answers it, but lots and lots of different ways to think about it. Another organization is actually tracking grants through Salesforce and a lot of client interactions in Salesforce, but those clients also are members of families. This is for an Alzheimer's organization. Lots of family members that ultimately are really potentially effective sources for effective prospects for plan giving. So it's having all that data in one place and being able to access it quickly. That's just so exciting. Charlie is asking, what is your favorite integration with Salesforce? And the answer is, I don't have one. It really goes back to the question of not the technology, but what you want the technology to do. So I may have I have my toolbox, right? And I have a Phillips head screwdriver, and I have a flathead screwdriver, and I've got them in a lot of different sizes. I've got lots of different saws and hammers. I've got some power, some not. By the way, I'm not that handy. I just happen to, here's where I am. The truth is, I don't listen to my own advice sometimes, and I buy the tools without understanding how to use them. I do that at least in carpentry, not in technology. So the question is, my favorite integration is the one that integrates, that one that does the job best for what the client needs. And anybody who's tried to fix something in their house, if you have the right tool, it's just so much easier. Let's see, any other questions? Oh, thank you, Meredith. She liked the answer. That makes me feel good. Any other questions? We're running up on the hour. I do have my beer, but I can't drink it because I have gained 10 pounds. We have one more question coming up. Oh, we have a couple more. Will there be any, will there be another session specifically on running reports? You know, we can certainly put that. So join the Connecticut users group, and let's see, and let us know that that's what you're interested in, and we'll find some people that would do that. I have also Alex from Salesforce. Let me see if I can get him live here so he can say hi, because he is also a resource for you that if your free licenses hang up, or you're looking to get the pro bono support or anything like that, Alex can help you with. So Alex, you should be live now if you want to say hi to the group, and certainly give them your contact information. Alex is, well, Alex, you speak.
Yeah, and can you hear me okay there, Rob?
I can.
Awesome, great. Well, that was a really, really insightful presentation. I think you did a really good job explaining something that may seem overwhelming and complex, and kind of simplifying it. Really like some of those analogies you use. So if we're doing a presentation together, you may see me steal a few of those. They were really well done. But yeah, as far as contact information goes, it would probably be better to first off go to the Power of Us Hub, apply for those free 10 licenses, and you'll automatically be routed to a specific account executive. That's what I do. I work with a few of Rob's clients. I think I heard one of them ask a question on the phone here. So feel free to go through and do things like that. But what I wanted to share real quick was just, talking a little bit about the COVID-19 situation we're all in, and obviously the impact this has on our nonprofit clients. And to Rob's point earlier, just really thinking about those use cases and initiatives. See, I think it's really important to differentiate us from a fundraising database, because really what we're seeing is organizations going from this panic mode to, oh, how are we going to keep our doors open, into this phase 2, or as Mark Benioff, our CEO, described as a reset era. How are we going to come out of this stronger and avoid this from happening again? So we're seeing a lot of clients reach out to us for some of their programs that are shifting to virtual programs instead of in-person, virtual auctions when those in-person big fundraising events are getting canceled. A lot of people don't know, but we have a service aspect that's included with NPSP. So call centers and triaging and case management and crisis hotlines, learning more about our supporters through marketing channels and some of those tools that you were saying with automation. And I would just encourage everyone on the phone here to definitely touch base with Salesforce. We really don't say no a lot to our clients. And when you're thinking about fundraising programs, call centers, virtual programs, just like Rob said, we do have applications and workflows, and we work with that specifically. We host a lot of webinars on our end too. Definitely get connected with me on LinkedIn, and I'll share those resources out with you. But at the end of it, we're all in this together. Our technology can really empower your organization, and we rely heavily on partners like Rob to take this vision and turn that into actuality. So thank you, Rob, for having that today.
Yeah, and we've got a lot more coming up, and hopefully sooner than later we can do some of this in person as well.
Absolutely.
Let me just check once, see if we got any more questions. And if not, I'm going to say thank you to everybody. Stay healthy, stay well, and I look forward to shaking hands with each of you at some point. So good night, all.